Alright, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Luke from Guild Umbra. We're going to dive into our second part of our videos with the Healing Spellslinger. In this video, we're going to talk about Spell Surge, if I can say it. And we're going to talk about Spellslinger healing abilities, what they look like, what they do. Possibly touch on some situations where you choose one over the other. And I'm going to save the amp section for another part in the video, so just so I have enough time to talk about it, because I don't want you guys to sit here 35 minutes listening to my voice, because I'll be honest, I get tired too of listening to myself talk. So anyway, let's dive right in. The first healing ability is a targeted ability. It is runic healing. So you click on the dude and you hit it, and it does heals to him. And what it does is it heals an ally's health every 2 seconds. There is a bonus to staying stationary while using it, and you lose a little bit if you are moving. Okay, and I like this ability. It's okay. I found myself in dungeons not really needing it. But that was only the 20 dungeons, and then of course the level 15 adventures. So a few times I switched this out to just provide some DPS to the group by times where people didn't need healing. I would use like quick shot or something like that just to do some damage to the mobs. Next ability is Runes of Protection. This is a line telegraph. It has 35 meter range. And basically what it does is it grants an absorb to yourself and 4 other allies for 10 seconds. Early on, this is an ability that I ran with in 15 man. Until I unlocked other abilities, this was, I considered, a pretty cool ability. In the Spell Surge bonus, I didn't mention that about the runic healing. It basically just restores more, okay, than it would if you didn't use Spell Surge. But the Spell Surge bonus to Runes of Protection is that it increases the amount that it whoever's got the absorb on them. Just some FYI. Vitality Burst. God, that's a big tooltip. Basically, it's a channeled spell. It's a small conal telegraph in front of the Spellslinger. And as you channel and get to different levels of your channel, you heal for more. But the cooldown is increased, as you can see. And the Spell Surge bonus of this is when I pop my Spell Surge or activate my Spell Surge and then hit this ability, it charges much faster. It's 50% faster, actually, because normally it's 2.6, and in this case, with the Spell Surge on, it would be 1.3. So pretty good burst healing ability. Not bad to, most Spellslingers would have this ability on them, I would believe. So moving on. Astral Fusion, which of course the tooltip doesn't fit. Astral Fusions. It's a instant cast, targeted ability. So you click on a target, and if he's in a 35 meter range of you, and you use this ability, this is what happens. It restores health, plus an additional amount of health every 2 seconds for 4 seconds to the ally. So, you get a big burst heal on them, one ally, and then you get a hot on them. And the Spell Surge bonus is basically that it heals for more. And the hot that it applies is more. Okay, heal over time. In my opinion, I ran with this a couple times, but I just found that in grouping, it's like my oh shit heal. But we have plenty more skills on our bar that do a lot more healing. It's just because they nerfed it really bad. Carbide did, so it's not as viable as it used to be. Um, it's still good. It's still good, but in my opinion, there's other abilities that do much more healing. So, moving on. Healing Salve. Now, for all you WoW guys out there, this is kind of similar to that Shaman shield that you would throw on your target, like the tank, for example. And as they took damage, it would heal them, and it would have charges on it. It's similar, only in this case that you don't have charges, you only have a cooldown, okay, um, before you can cast it again. So it's a big circular. It's one of our biggest AOE heals, so to speak. But it works as just like the Shaman shield back in WoW days. But it hits all the targets. So and as they take damage, it restores health. Can only occur every 3 seconds. But just think about that for a second. As an AOE healer in raids, keeping this up on as many people as possible is going to be pretty beastly, especially for your healing. And of course, the spell surge bonus just restores a more percent of your support power plus the base health. So usually when I was in dungeons, I would spell surge this and another ability on down the line that I'll show you later, and just keep it up as much as I could. Next ability is dual fire. Shit. Can't get the tooltips to work for me tonight. Dual fire. It's a cone telegraph. Goes up to 25 meters, and it's casted. So it takes 1.6 seconds for it to activate. And basically, what it does is it restores health up to 5 allies, and then it deals a certain percent magic damage to 5 foes who are also in that telegraph. So, it's pretty cool. I ran it a couple times in dungeons and adventures just to throw a little DPS on top of the healing that needed to be done anyway. So, it's not bad. It's not bad. And of course, the spell surge just increases the health it restores and the magic damage it does. Healing turret. Now this is a interesting. It's sort of the pinnacle of the support tree in the amps, and you can only unlock it by getting it through amps to make it available for your action set. So, but what it does, it's a somewhat narrow line telegraph heal, 35 meters, and it can restore health to yourself and 4 allies if you land it. Healing turret costs is increased by 9 each time if used within 8 seconds of the previous use. Stacks 2 times. So something to keep, to be aware of is that this spell does heal for a large amount. However, if you're finding yourself in situations where you're using this spell often, you're probably going to run out of focus. Probably. Because of the stacks. It just makes it difficult to, get rid of your stacks and, not have to use this ability as much. It's sort of a weakness with all the healers across the board is burst damage. Some do better with it. But since this is a directional heal, it makes us have a lot of issues sometimes. Because you might cast it and then a boss does a telegraph, and everybody moves. And now you just wasted 31 focus. You know what I mean? So it's not a bad ability at all. I'm not talking bad about it. You just have to pick and choose your situations where it's viable. Okay? Spell Surge, when it's Spell Surge, it restores more health, basically. Void Spring. When you get this at level 21, or when I got it, I switched out a lot of things. And that I didn't feel that I needed. Just things like I think I switched out dual fire for this, along with healing salve, vitality burst, and runic healing, because it just does the spell surge bonus on it restores a lot of health. It may not seem like much, but especially if you're running with a group that's highly melee damage and taking, um, you can make really good use of this. It's one of those things where it helps to have your group in TeamSpeak or Mumble or whatever communication program you use. So you can be like, look, guys, this isn't a telegraph. You don't have to dodge out of it. It's helping you. Because a lot of issues I've had with it was it's useful if everyone knows to stand in it, but it's not useful when people don't stand in it. And a lot of people, especially range DPS here lately, I've noticed just kind of see it and they're like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm not moving. I'm doing damage. So it's one of those things. It obviously brings a lot to the table if you pair it with a healing salve. Um, and it's a good ability. I have no issues with it whatsoever. Regenerative, uh, regenerative pulse. We get this at level 24. It's an instant cast ability, and it costs us 33 focus. 15-second cooldown. Restores health divided amongst 3 allies. The surge bonus is that it, of course, restores more health. It's not a bad ability. It's just we have other abilities that do more, and the focus cost is a lot less. So, I didn't run with it personally, but you can certainly say that there are uses for this ability. So I would say it's a situational ability. Okay. Sustain. Now, I've heard pros and cons of this. A lot of people have opinions varying on both sides. I will say that I am for it. Simply because if I had to compare sustain to void spring, this is much more reliable, and it's much more like the healing of old, I'll call it. It's a big circular telegraph. Takes 1.8 seconds to charge. Um, it's a big circle telegraph that comes out from you, and it's 12 focus per charge, and you only have 2 charges. So it restores health to yourself and 4 allies. So it's like a big AOE heal. And it's one of our easier heals to land. So the pros and cons of sustain over void spring, and there's some sites out there you can check this on to verify, make sure I know what I'm talking about. Was that void spring is a small AOE, and you got to get people to stand. Whereas sustain, you can move yourself to where a majority of your allies are and cast this. Okay, and you can cast it. Yes, you have to be stationary, but if you pick and choose your situations where, a boss is not going to be, you don't have to move. Boss is not going to be doing any big telegraphs, but I need to put out some burst healing AOE. Not bad. This is more freeform where you have to click the ability and then place the circle. So that would be kind of a, pro and cons of void spring over sustain. Okay. So that covers the healing abilities. I will touch base on the utility abilities briefly, and which ones more specifically I find to be useful as the Spellslinger healer. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of them because I did go through all of them with my DPS overview video. So moving on. This is Gate. It's a line telegraph. It can be used from range, and you blink forward 17 meters and apply a stun to 5 foes. The stun prevents any action for 3.25 seconds and destroys one interrupt armor. So, I did use this, uh, but do have some complaints about it. Um, the complaint being that on certain bosses, for example, the first boss in Calvarath, Ruins of Calvarath, if you gate into the guy to interrupt his ravage while he's channeling it, you will probably die. Just throwing that out there. Um, and it puts you in a lot of bad situations sometimes, where you don't want to be next to the boss. Those are situations where I'd choose a different CC if you could. Um, and that's just been my opinion. So, flash freeze is a root. It's more or less used for leveling to root a bunch of enemies in place and get yourself back to range and do damage, or maybe give your tank time to pick up the ads that are running at you and wanting to kill you. Um, However, I find that in situations where the tank needs to move the targets, this could be bad. So for example, like there's some pats in Storm Talon where if you're rooting them in place, the tank's going to be pretty pissed off at you because now you have more mobs because the pat ran up and you're still engaged. The guy that is rooted sees his buddy and he's like, okay, it's on. Let's push their shit in, basically. And so it's situational. Void Slip. This is our only available ability that will allow us to break those CCs. Okay. Good example where this is useful is well, a couple of examples actually is the first boss in Storm Talon does this big subdue where he knocks everybody's weapon loose. If you're good enough on your timing, you can void slip that whole entire subdue and you don't have to run around and find your weapon. Pop back in and start healing. Just a thought. Um, Another situation, the robot in Kelvarath, the second boss, does a tether. This will break that tether. So it's a very good ability. I have no complaints there with it. It's also a multi-attack ability, so you activate it to go into the void, and then you activate it again if you want to come out before that 3.5 seconds. So FYI. Arcane Shock. It deals magic damage. It destroys one interrupt armor and applies an arcane shock to 5 foes for 5 seconds. So the arcane shock basically means that if you see a guy casting an ability and you use this on him, it then locks the mob out of that particular spell. I had to make sure. It then locks, like say he's, I don't know, casting Rejuvenate, one of the shamans, or and Storm Talon are casting Rejuvenate. I can talk, I promise. And you use this on them, it locks them out of that spell for 5 seconds. It's more or less I would lean more toward the PvP side than a PvE or leveling side. But the pros of this ability is it still interrupts. It takes interrupt armor off. And although it doesn't stun the animal or, a mob, it does allow you to get moves. So, it's a lot safer than Gate is, in my opinion. For the very reason that you don't jump into the enemy to interrupt them and get like massacred because he just looks at you. So it's a little bit more safer CC. So Purify as a healer in a lot of these dungeons. If you're not running something like Grid or one of those add-ons that show debuffs, you're gonna have some problems. I'll just say that. Purify, what it does is it removes 2 debuffs from yourself and 4 allies. So one issue I've had with this, and many of my other guildmates have told me about this too, is whoever your Spellslinger healer is, in order to get all the debuffs off your group, they need to be in front of you because it's a very narrow conal telegraph, and it's easy, very easy, to miss people. So, but I do run it on a lot of the dungeons. Gather focus. Early on, I used this ability a lot, but as I got more gear and got more focus recovery rating, I found the need not to have this on my bar. That's just my opinion. Um, I'm still debating on the diminished part of this ability. I do not like it. Recludes ongoing healing by 35% for 6 seconds. A lot can happen in 6 seconds. And if I'm having abilities that reduce the amount of healing I'm outputting, I dislike that. You know, uh, it does not take 6 seconds to between one mob pool that you guys just killed and another mob pool to start. Um, so yeah, yeah, it's pros and cons thing, man. You kind of have to play with it. Early on, I used it. Um, but like I said, as I got more gear and focus recovery rating on my gear, I felt the need not to have this. Void Pact. Create a 8-meter field around you, lasting 3.5 seconds. Allies entering the field receive Empower and Swiftness. Now, this is a one of those things that, okay, yeah, it gives me and my allies this field around me that increases their assault power. Okay, they do more damage and they move faster. That's not one of those things that, in my opinion, that we have to go with on our action bar all the time. It's a situational thing. If we know the boss fight has these mechanics that, yeah, we need to be in this field to move faster and it'll help us, um, then, take it by all means. It's just not high up on my priority list when I look at a lot of grouping um, in dungeons and adventures. Maybe in raids, maybe. Um, so anyway, that's what it does. It increases assault power by 9% of their current maximum for 10 seconds. And then it also increases their movement speed by 25% for 10 seconds. Spatial shift. Basically, what this does is it's an awesome PvP ability. However, for people who don't know this, and I'm just throwing this out there, it's often I was dueling a couple spellslingers, and what I would often do is instead of moving around, um, I would just sit still and heal myself through whatever damage they had at me until I got my movement keys back in place and were able to move again. Now obviously everybody that you go against is not going to be a healer. So there's situations where this would be very cool. Things like maybe the flag carrier in Walatiki or mass carrier is running. You can use this on them and just like watch your group stomp them into the ground. So, while he tries to figure out which way to go on his keys that actually go forward, because it just mismatches all your keys, your movement keys. Forward's not forward. So, anyway, again, this is be more of a PvP skill, not a PvE skill, in my opinion. Phase shift. Grant yourself internet armor and defense. Defense increases your deflect chance by 70%. It's one of those things where it would be situational as well. If I find Void Slip to be much more, useful in PvE, I think this would fall closely into PvP. Never used it, to be honest, but I could see it being useful. I could, especially if you got the mask and you're running it. to your base and you know you're going to get CC, throw this thing on you, and you'll at least get rid of one of them, and then increase your deflect chance so you don't get massacred. So anyway, moving on. Affinity. Affinity is it grants a beacon to yourself or an ally for 10 seconds. Beacon increases incoming healing by 10%. Again, I don't really can't find a reason to use this because if you're really that reliant as a healer to have this ability on your bar, then you're doing something wrong, in my opinion, because 10% incoming healing is not that much. And if that's all the ability does, I just don't. I can't find a reason for me to put it on my bar. I have other healing abilities and utility abilities that are much better and have more uses. So, kind of disappointed with that one. Hopefully they'll change it or something in the future. But that's my opinion as of now. So anyway, that covers kind of what I wanted to talk about with the healing Spellslinger. There's a couple websites out there. I won't give them on site. If you're interested in knowing about them and you're in my guild, then I'll be glad to share them with you. It's nothing personal. I just, I'd rather have my guildies know things ahead of time, so we have a leg up over other people. So, anyway, this is Luke from Guild Umbra. If you like what you saw in this video, hit that like button on YouTube and give me some feedback. If you'd like to see something different with the way I'm doing these videos, by all means, let me know. Constructive criticism, please. Don't be a douche. Um, you know, uh, Another thing is you Twitch users out there, if you want to be alerted for when I'm going live with another video or stream, follow me on Twitch. My name's Big Dog LB. Don't ask. It's a nickname I grew up with. So, just some info, FYI. Again, this is Luke from Guild Umbra. In the next video, we'll talk about amps, specifically ones I find useful as a healing spell slinger, and kind of talk about why we don't pick certain amps and whatnot. So, anyway, you guys have a great night. We'll see you next time.